Yeah. Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. Welcome to Week 7 Fantasy Football. It's probably not going to be a banger because this week is absolutely going to suck for all things running backs. Just listen to this. Running backs that will be without here in Week 7 because they're on bye. Zach Moss, Devin Singletary. All right, we'll start off easy, but then you lose Zeke, Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, Austin Eckler, James Robinson. Injuries to Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, Antonio Gibson is questionable, Alex Collins is questionable, Latavius Murray is questionable. We already have Saquon Barkley on IR, David Montgomery on IR, CEH on IR, Chris Carson on IR. This is absolute mayhem. You're going to be starting some people in fantasy football this week that you had never intended on probably in your entire life. Now, before we get into all the Week 7 matchups, how did we do last week in Week 6? And honestly, Week 6 was a banger. Out of the 55 running backs we gave a start or sit designation to, 40 of them were correct for an accuracy percentage of 73%. Some of the bigger misses, oh hey, nice to see you out there, Kenyon Drake. He had himself a great game. The backfield of Baltimore continues to be a headache. And then a few of the hits. We don't have just playoff Lenny. We also have regular season Lenny now in Tampa Bay. He absolutely killing it. Darrell Williams came in, filled in nicely for CEH, and then Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs as well. But here we are sitting here mid-October, and I can't let you guys miss out on this giveaway that we're doing for October for everybody who can sign up for Prize Picks. We have an autographed Christian McCaffrey jersey, an autographed mystery pylon like this one right here from Pristine Auction, a Manscaped Perfect Package 4.0, and a $50 Fanatics gift card. It's a bundle giveaway valued at over $300, and all you need to do, head over to prizepicks.com, download the app. There's a link down below in the description. You sign up for a new account through Prize Picks, you use the referral code Headliners, you make your initial deposit of at least $20. We'll match your deposit all the way up to $100, and then you can make these Prize Picks with us all year long and continue to make a little bit of extra cash on a weekly basis. Looking forward to doing that, but now it's time to dive in here to Week 7. We're kicking it off Thursday Night Football, Denver Broncos, Cleveland Browns. And let me start off by saying this, that losing Chubb in real life, it can be a good thing, right? But in fantasy, it's a very bad thing, and I have lost my Chubb, and I'm not happy about it. We've gone from Chubb and Hunt just being questionable to now they're both out, will not play here Thursday Night Football. And overall, Cleveland is just falling apart due to injuries. Chubb, Hunt, both their starting tackles with Jedrick Wills, Jack Conklin, they missed last week. Plus now you have Baker Mayfield, who's playing through a torn labrum in his non-throwing shoulder. Does Jarvis Landry return? That's something we need to pay attention to. But what do we do now in Cleveland, especially in the backfield, that we have no Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt? Well, we look at Demetric Felton and D'Ernest Johnson. Oof. I mean, don't get me wrong. Both of these guys could produce in a perfect world, right? But with Baker Mayfield hurt, with the offensive line banged up, and a matchup against the Denver Broncos who allow only 16 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs, this isn't ideal. And what kind of split are we going to see between these two guys? I mean, this is like advanced thermodynamics at this point, trying to figure it out. It could literally go either way. Neither of these guys have played more than 12 snaps in a game so far here in 2021. And honestly, I don't love either of these options here this week if I have to choose one, because maybe you need somebody with all these injuries. Honestly, I'm leaning the way of Demetric Felton here, especially in PPR scoring leagues. Now, a lot of people all over social media, everybody's saying that it's D'Ernest Johnson. He's the guy to go out and get, and he's the guy to start. He only has 10 career receptions. Demetric Felton has 8 just so far here this season in his rookie year. Plus, a lot of people going the way of D'Ernest Johnson, you may be able to pick up and use Demetric Felton at a cheaper price, because I don't want to overpay, because Nick Chubb will be back here pretty soon. I'm looking for that PPR upside. If Jarvis Landry doesn't return, Baker not able to go down the field as often. If he's hurting, maybe more check down passes to the likes of Demetric Felton. I don't love it either way, but if I had to choose one, I'm going with Felton here this week. For Denver, I got to admit something. Last week, Melvin Gordon, he looked pretty good. I mean, Week 6 was a really good eye test for Melvin Gordon, but he just doesn't have that X factor that Javonte Williams has. And I'm sure if you watch the games, you can see it. There's only one running back in the NFL right now that has 3 carries of over 30 yards. His name, Javonte Williams. He's out there hurdling people. He's breaking tackles. He's fighting for that extra yardage. But both of these guys are literally locked in a 50-50 split. They're both averaging right around 5 yards per carry. This past week, they both got 3 targets last week. It's difficult, right? Because these guys are neck and neck in this backfield. And Cleveland is pretty tough against the run. They allow right around 13 fantasy points per game. That's second best in the NFL. But they're still going to have to utilize both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams on a weekly basis. So what I'm going to do, first thing, I'm heading over to Prize Picks, and I'm going to smash the over for Melvin Gordon on receiving yards. Right now, his over-under is set at 11.5 receiving yards. So the over is where I'm going right there. But with all of these bye weeks, I can see both of these guys being flex options for you here this week. Are they going to be ranked super high in my rankings because I'm totally pumped to start them? No. More than likely, their flex options going to find themselves as a low-end running back 2, high-end running back 3 at best. However, the floor, fairly safe, sitting right there, right around 7 points a week. It's not sexy. But in times like this, you may not have a choice. As of right now, they'll both be in the start column. Which will take us to Sunday football. Washington football team, Green Bay Packers, and the AAROM Discount Double Suck It Tour is continuing here in Green Bay this weekend. Rodgers' efficiency in the passing game is just seriously helping out the run game right now a lot. A.J. Dillon is a thing in this backfield. We've talked about him for weeks. He really has adopted that old school Jamal Williams role. Sure, it's not the large bell cow role that we want to have, go the way of Aaron Jones, but he's definitely getting touches, just not a ton. Hasn't played more than 29 snaps so far in a game this season. We know we're going to start Aaron Jones weekly for that ridiculous season, but in a matchup going up against Washington, they allow right around 22 fantasy points per game, 7th most in the NFL. With Bipocalypse here, with everybody else injured, A.J. Dillon, for me, is going to enter flex territory and become a start. Another one of those guys, not going to be super high in my rankings, but if you need somebody to fill in and in a horrible week, A.J. Dillon isn't a bad name to throw in there as a flex. For the Washington football team, we know you can't sit Antonio Gibson, especially in a week like this if he plays, but he's probably not going to be 100%. He has an MRI on Tuesday, have yet to see the results of that at the time of this recording, something we will pay attention to, but I have to expect he's going to see less touches. Who gets those touches? J.D. McKissic. In a game going up against Green Bay, who's able to score some points, Washington could find themselves playing from behind, having to throw the ball. When they throw the ball, who are they throwing it to? They're checking down constantly to J.D. McKissic because there's no Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin not 100%. It's just a bad situation. Gibson looked bothered on Sunday. There's a few times where I saw him on the field. He just didn't look like he was there. Like he was playing through pain. Something else was on his mind. A few bad drops, not what you want to see, especially when you're not getting huge target volume. Like I said, I do expect Washington to be trailing in this game, having to throw. So for that case, I'm going to start both of these guys, Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissic here this week. Out to Tennessee now for the Titans and Chiefs. And a lot of people look at Kansas City right now and it's like, what's going on? Like, is Kansas City broken? And no, I don't think they are. They're just not unbeatable. They're not juggernauts on a weekly basis here anymore. Now, Patrick Mahomes trying to force too much down the field. The injury to CEH doesn't help things. But one thing we can say is this team is committed to Darrell Williams in the backfield. Had 24 touches in week 6. Now, only 89 total yards with those touches. However, the Washington defense actually played pretty well, better than they had for majority of the season here to start in 2021. And really, it's all about those scoring opportunities, and they're going to be there weekly for Darrell Williams. We just saw that this past week, right? 2 rushing touchdowns, plus he's able to catch passes out of the backfield. Now, Tennessee allows right around 18 fantasy points per game. Jerick McKinnon really not involved that much, really a lesser role. I'm going to continue to start Darrell Williams here for Kansas City. As for Tennessee, this is the week that Derrick Henry could struggle. No, probably not. I don't know if any team is out there that Derrick Henry can't run on. And now in a matchup like this, going up against Kansas City, they allow over 20 fantasy points per game. This is going to be another great day for Derrick Henry. Do you realize he's ahead of his pace from last year? That is crazy. And he's only got 3 less receptions this season than he had all of last season. The guy is absolutely everywhere, scoring a ton of points. Enjoy it once again here this week. Derrick Henry going to be on top of the rankings more than likely here in week 7. Now we head down to Miami for the Dolphins and Falcons, and that's it. I've been nice for weeks to Brian Flores. I've showed the man some respect, but enough is enough. I mean, why are we being so cute in Miami? What sense does the Myles Gaskin usage actually make? Like, what logical sense does it make? You are a 1-4 team going up against the winless Jacksonville Jaguars, and you think it's a good idea to give Myles Gaskin the second fewest snaps he's seen in a game this season with 25. The same Myles Gaskin who had a huge performance finding the end zone multiple times the week before. You're a team that needs playmakers, and yet you have one that you will not give the ball to, but that's okay because you think it's cool to give the ball to Salvon Ahmed and Malcolm Brown 14 times. 14 total times combined between those two. And don't worry, they got their average of 3 yards per carry. So yeah, great job. Great job throwing them out there on the field. I understand this whole hot hand approach with NFL head coaches. However, I was pretty convinced that Gaskin came into week 6 as the guy with the hot hand from week 5. Obviously, they just wanted to ignore that altogether. How do we handle this? How do we trust this going forward? I mean, I'm going to tell you this. This is how I'm going to handle it. Just like that. I can't deal. I'm giving it the finger. It's too volatile. It's too big of a swing here from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. Now the snap percentages are all over the place on a weekly basis. I'm sitting everybody in Miami. I've had it. I've had it up to here. I don't have any more room to lose hair. And damn it, Brian Flores is out there making me turn more gray and lose more hair than I need to right now. Thanks, Brian. What about Atlanta? Welcome back, Cordero Patterson. But heck, they're going up against the Miami Dolphins, who allow over 27 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs, the most in the NFL. So come on, sit at the table with us. Mike Davis as well this week. Davis has touchdowns in back-to-back games. They're coming off their bye week. They're well rested. They've planned for the Miami team, who is absolutely in shambles right now. I really hope Patterson continues this wave, right? But we're paying close attention. We're really following this closely because as he starts to dip, we want to make sure we sell high before it comes crashing down. I don't think Cordero Patterson is the closest thing to Derrick Henry in the NFL like we've seen the first 5-6 weeks of the season. So we're paying close attention because we want to make sure we capitalize before they tank, right? But right now we're riding that wave in a great matchup and starting both Cordero Patterson and Mike Davis. So now we head up to New England for the Patriots and Jets, and apparently Damian Harris is not only just healthy, but he's escaped the doghouse of Bill Belichick and had himself a great game just last week against the Dallas Cowboys. 18 carries, 101 yards on the ground, and 1 touchdown. Only played in 26 offensive snaps, though, which is not a lot, but we really saw him break up a few big runs, which is great to see because that will really boost that ceiling on a weekly basis. Now, Ramondre Stevenson, he's got a role as well, right? But he only played 18 offensive snaps and is a little bit more touchdown dependent than Damian Harris because he's not getting as much volume. This is a great matchup, though, going up against the Jets, who allow right around 23 fantasy points per game, 6th most in the NFL. Still a little bit too early for me to trust Ramondre Stevenson, but as for Damian Harris, he's going to find himself in the start column. For the Jets, I'm really only looking at Michael Carter here. He's coming off the bye week. He's had touchdowns in back-to-back games. He had 11 carries for 59 yards and 2 receptions for 29 yards against this same New England team back in week 2. Can the Jets keep this game close to really utilize the running game? I don't know. We know Bill Belichick is going to go out there and try to torture Zach Wilson again because he absolutely lit him up the first meeting between these two. In my opinion, Michael Carter, more of a flex option only. As for Ty Johnson, still not seeing a large enough amount of snaps for me to want to trust him on a weekly basis. He really needs touchdowns, not a whole lot of touchdowns to go around in New York there for the Jets. Too many question marks going right there for him. So Michael Carter is going to be the guy in the start column. When it comes to the rankings, though, end of the week, he's not going to find himself very high up the rankings. A lot going against him in this offense, in this matchup. But if you're desperate, he does have flex appeal here in week 7. Over the other New York team now for the Giants and Panthers in what could be a matchup of Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey turns out to be a matchup of Chuba Hubbard and Devontae Booker. Not exactly, a showstopper matchup here. However, Chuba's been playing pretty well as of late. In my opinion, needs to get even more work in this offense to take some of the pressure off of Sam Darnold, who's starting to make a few too many mistakes here as of late. They've really committed to Chuba since the injury to Christian McCaffrey, though he's had at least 17 touches over his last 2 games, which is great to see. A matchup now against the Giants, who allow 24 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs, 5th most in the NFL. It's a good time to start Chuba Hubbard here in week 7. As for Devontae Booker and the New York Giants, it's another tough matchup for them going up against Carolina. I mean, let's be honest, Devontae Booker is not Dalvin Cook out there. He's not going to run all over the place on the Carolina Panthers, who only allow right around down, 15 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs, 7th fewest in the NFL. There's just so many injuries for them there in New York. I mean, we got Kenny Golladay and Darius Slayton. We know that there's no Saquon Barkley, obviously. Kadarius Toney is seriously banged up right now. They may have to rely on Devontae Booker a little bit more. And even though this isn't the greatest matchup, in a week like this, we could bank on the extra volume. I'll start Devontae Booker. Out to Baltimore now for the Ravens and Bengals, and it was great to see Joe Mixon go out there in week 6 and get 23 total touches. Sure, I'm sure it helped with Samaje Perine being out, but Chris Evans filled in for him, had 7 touches, and it's still clear that Joe Mixon is option 1A in this backfield. But what's really helping him right now? The passing game. Joe Burrow with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and Jamar Chase really opening things up for Joe Mixon. Going up against the Baltimore Ravens, they allow right around 19 fantasy points per game. Do you realize that Joe Mixon right now is on pace for 1,300 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns, and about 255 yards through the air as well? You keep him healthy, the production is going to continue. We're starting him once again this week against the Ravens. For Baltimore, the mess continues, right? As expected, we've talked about this for weeks. Latavius Murray, Devontae Freeman, Le'Veon Bell, they all had touchdowns in week 6. They're not committed to any one of these guys. What are these touches going to, turn out to be in the coming weeks? Are they going to stay an equal split? Because honestly, they were pretty even here this past week. Latavius Murray with 11, Devontae Freeman with 9, Le'Veon Bell with 8. And do you even remember Tyson Williams? I mean, he's just like a thing of the past at this point, right? This is going to be a mess weekly in Baltimore. Freeman, in my opinion, actually looks the best right now. Out of everybody, the eye test wise, I'm going the way of Devontae Freeman. But when you look at the matchup going up against the Cincinnati Bengals, who are right around 16 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs, honestly, Murray's a little bit banged up. Freeman is somebody, if I had to absolutely choose one, I would, but I prefer to sit all 3 of these guys until there's more clarity in this backfield. They're going to put up points each and every week. But what's that split going to look like, and how do we know which one of these guys to start on a weekly basis? Like I said, if I have to choose one, it's Devontae Freeman just because Latavius Murray is banged up, but I don't want to start any of these guys. Out to Las Vegas now for the Raiders and Eagles, and speaking of another cluster, I mean, this is just bad, right? I mean, did anybody watch Philadelphia last Thursday? Did you notice what happens when Miles Sanders got the ball late in the game? Yeah, things happened, right? The problem is they just will not give him the ball. He's averaging over 6 yards per carry, yet only gets 9 carries. He's had single-digit carries in 3 of the last 4 games they've played. Now, a lot of people may say, well, yeah, they're utilizing Kenneth Gainwell a little bit more. Nope, they're not utilizing him either. He only played 12 snaps last week and got 1 touch. I don't understand. So instead of utilizing the guys that can actually move the ball on the ground, you're putting Jalen Hurts in a position to fail on a weekly basis by forcing the ball deep down the field consistently. Nick Sirianni has no offensive identity here in Philadelphia. They are totally lost. They just look on a weekly basis like they're trying to figure it out. Las Vegas allows right around 18 fantasy points per game. And at some point, I'm telling you, Miles Sanders is going to have a big game, just like we saw from Myles Gaskin. The problem is, unless you just commit to starting him every single week, it's going to happen on your bench because of the usage we've seen here over the last few weeks, which is totally irritating. The floor is just too low. As of right now, sitting everybody that I can in Philadelphia. For Las Vegas, we had ourselves a Kenyon Drake signing, right? He actually finished as running back 9 overall last week, but really, it was 1 big pass play, right? He was 1 pass play away from finishing as running back 24 overall. So Jacobs still leads this backfield in touches, has had 17 plus touches now in 3 straight games. He's just super inefficient. He's averaging a career worst 3.2 yards per carry. If he's going to be a great start on a weekly basis, he needs touchdowns. Fortunately, he's getting those opportunities as of right now, and Philadelphia allows over 21 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs, 9th most in the NFL. I don't really want to trust, Kenyon Drake just yet. I want to see him do it again before I want to trust starting him. But for Josh Jacobs, due to that volume and the touchdown upside, I'll start him here this week. Out to LA now, though, for the Rams and the Lions, and this is going to be my Manscaped matchup of the week to watch here at the running back position. Just a reminder, as soon as this video is over, head over to manscaped.com, use the promo code HEADLINERS, get yourself something nice for your travel bag, and we're going to give you 20% off and free shipping, so don't forget to do that as soon as this video is over, before it's too late. Get your Christmas presents bought right now. But it's really hard for me to say that this is a great matchup, right? It's just one of the only matchups where we have two starting running backs that are actually healthy and playing, right? We got DeAndre Swift and Darrell Henderson. And in my opinion, Darrell Henderson is severely underrated. This guy is a great running back when given the opportunity. He's explosive and he's able to play all over the field. Just last week, coming off of 23 total touches for 107 total yards and 2 touchdowns against the New York Giants. Now he gets Detroit, who allows 25 fantasy points per game, third most in the NFL to opposing running backs. So I'm heading over to Prize Picks right now, and I'm going to smash the over on Darrell Henderson, which is currently set at 80.5 rushing yards. Love the over right there for that. Plus, we know there's going to be a little bit of a revenge game going on, right? We got Matthew Stafford going up against his former team in the Detroit Lions. We got Jared Goff coming home, or back home, I guess you could say, to LA to face off against the Rams. This is going to be one of those games where I really expect the Los Angeles Rams to try to go out there and run up a lead early in this ball game, rely on Darrell Henderson a little bit more late in that game. So it's going to be a smash start this week for Darrell Henderson. As for Detroit, it's really only DeAndre Swift that we're talking about. He's the only one I'm really interested in. Jamal Williams' touches are down now in 3 straight weeks, and he just played a season low in snaps with only 19 this past week. So Swift getting right around 18 touches, which is the most he's seen since week 3, which we love to see. Thank you, Dan Campbell, for finally starting to get this kid the ball a little bit earlier in the game. Plus, he has a touchdown in 3 of his last 4 games played. He's currently running back 9 overall. And the Rams, even though when you say their name and you think about some of their defensive pieces, they're really middle of the pack run defense, allowing right around 18 fantasy points per game. So I'm looking for Swift to have another solid game, get that passing work, and be a start here this week. Out to the desert now for the Arizona Cardinals, Houston Texans. We know nobody wants to start a running back for the Houston Texans, but should we? No, we probably shouldn't. They haven't had a running back score more than 10 fantasy points since week 1, and it was Mark Ingram back then. Sure, he's getting volume on a weekly basis, and he doesn't look half bad, but there's no scoring opportunities in Houston, and it really lowers the ceiling, so I'm continuing to sit everybody there. Even though it's a revenge game. Is it still a revenge game for David Johnson? No? Yeah, it's not. I mean, nobody cares about David Johnson at this point. So what about the Arizona Cardinals now? I want to see Chase Edmonds healthier. He had a solid day, I guess you could say, last week, but really, it was one 40-yard run. Outside from that, he didn't do anything this past week. In fact, his snap percentages have now dropped for 3 straight weeks. And over those 3 straight weeks, James Conner's snap percentage has increased each and every week. He's got 5 touchdowns over his last 4 games, and I expect Arizona to get a lead against the Houston Texans. Arizona, one of the best offenses in all of the NFL. I expect that second half lead, some garbage points going the way of James Conner. Maybe he finds the end zone a time or 2. And maybe they just rest Chase Edmonds a little bit more to make sure he gets a little bit healthier here heading into the middle of the season. Plus, it's a revenge game too, right? We got DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt over there for the Arizona Cardinals wanting to lay the smack down to the Houston Texans. So I'm going to go ahead and start James Conner here this week. Out to Tampa Bay now for the Bucs and the Bears. And I think it's safe to say that we can transition from playoff Lenny, Super Bowl Lenny, to now regular season Lenny for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because another dominating performance by him in week 6. He's now had 20-plus carries in 2 out of the last 3 games this season. He's had at least 5 targets in 3 straight games as well, which we love to see. Plenty of Tampa Bay leads late. Plenty of scoring opportunities there for Leonard Fournette. Heck, in 2020, Leonard Fournette had only 5 total broken tackles. So far this season, he's already got 11. He's running like vintage Lenny, like old school Jacksonville Jaguar Leonard Fournette. Ronald Jones, Gio Bernard really not getting, enough touches to want to start right around that 20 snaps per game. Not worth it, right? We're starting Leonard Fournette here once again for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which takes me over to Chicago and Khalil Herbert. Now, we mentioned him for weeks, right? But we shouldn't be surprised with the production we're seeing there with him. He just had 21 carries and really split that backfield with nobody. So the biggest question mark here in Chicago is, what about Damian Williams here this week? Does he return off the COVID IR? As much as I think he does, it still has yet to happen at the time of this recording. Now, Tampa Bay is easier to throw on than they are to run on, allowing only 15 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. But until we get closer to the weekend and really see the availability of Damian Williams, then we're going to have to wait to really narrow down this backfield. As of right now, at the time of this recording, with Damian Williams not activated, I would go ahead and start Khalil Herbert based off the volume he could see in Bipocalypse week here. But now, if Damian Williams does start and he's good to go 100% by week's end, all of a sudden I will start Damian Williams over Khalil Herbert for his pass-catching upside in a game in which they could be trailing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You got all that? That all makes sense. So we really need to wait and find out what happens with Damian Williams. We'll update you as the week goes on. By the time we get around to the injury episode, probably on Friday, we'll have a good understanding of what's going to happen with Damian Williams and be able to get you a little bit more, clear understanding. But as of right now, at the time of this recording, Khalil Herbert is the guy to start in Chicago. Which takes us to Sunday Night Football, San Francisco 49ers, Indianapolis Colts, and Jonathan Taylor is basically like Derrick Henry's mini-me, right? That's kind of what he is. Can you imagine the numbers that maybe even Jonathan Taylor could put up if he got Henry-esque volume? There hasn't been a game yet this season in 2021 where Jonathan Taylor has had at least 20 carries, but yet he's still currently running back 4 overall, doing it on the ground and through the air, has 5 touchdowns over his last 3 games played. And now they get the San Francisco 49ers, which is a very difficult matchup. They only allow 12.5 fantasy points per game, but you can't sit Jonathan Taylor. The ceiling is astronomical, and he could win you your matchup on any given week. As for San Francisco, we couldn't trust these guys before their bye week, right? And we still can't do it after their bye week. Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon, Kyle Juszczyk, they're all going to split touches. None of them are going to be overly sexy. We really don't get very many scoring opportunities. Now they get a matchup against the Colts. They allow only 13 fantasy points per game, 3rd fewest in the NFL. Just too volatile, too much risk here to really want to trust in week 7, even though we have so many running backs injured. In my opinion, there's still safer, better options out there than anybody here in San Francisco. Which means we ended up Monday Night Football, Seattle Seahawks, New Orleans Saints, and the Saints coming off their bye week. And does Michael Thomas return? If he does that help or hurt Alvin Kamara? Well, I don't really think it hurts him that much. I mean, they really haven't been reliant on pass work with Alvin Kamara anyway. The dude is running between the tackles a lot more than he ever has. In fact, he's had at least 20 plus carries in 3 of their 5 games already this season. He's not splitting any touches with anybody in this backfield, though. He's still going to get plenty of volume. Even if his targets take a slight hit, he's still getting that volume on the ground to make him a weekly start regardless every single week. For Seattle, no bueno. We got Chris Carson is out. Alex Collins is questionable. They play Monday night, which is not great because we're going to have to wait till later in the weekend to maybe even get some clarity on this backfield. Do we want to rely on Travis Homer or DJ Dallas? If both those guys play, what kind of split do they see? Too many question marks there altogether. The Saints allow only 15 fantasy points per game. They're a solid overall defense. I can't trust anybody here in the backfield of Seattle. As of right now, they're all going to be sits. Now, if Alex Collins by the weekend is 100% full go, no limitations, I will start Alex Collins here in Bipocalypse week. But outside of that, that's the only thing I'm going to pay attention to for the Seattle Seahawks here in week 7. All right, those are my starts and sits for the running back position here, week 7 fantasy football. It's not pretty. Trust me, I know it's ugly. Hang in there. This is why we draft heavy running backs to try to get through the times like this throughout the regular season. But hopefully everybody has a great rest of your week out there. Get in there on that Prize Picks giveaway. I cannot wait to give that huge package away to somebody here in Headliner Nation. Looking forward to doing that. Link down below in the description to Prize Picks. Sign up now. We greatly appreciate that support. Hopefully you have a great rest of your day, a great week. We'll talk to you later.